Out of all the islands of Hawaii, I believe that the Big Island is the biggest and the best island of them all. But many people that choose to relocate to this island don't realize many things about this island until they're already here. So in this video, I'm gonna go over 15 things about the Big Island that many people don't know. Number 1. Big Island is the primary host of the Ironman event. It happens on this island just about every year. In fact, for the last couple of decades, the only reason a couple times it wasn't hosted by this island is because of COVID. But every other time, it's always here, and from 2026 and forward, the plan is to have it here every single year as well. So if you're an athlete that likes marathons, there's no better island to be on than this one. Number 2. Tsunamis. Big Island is frequently hit by tsunamis, but luckily most of them are pretty small and don't cause a lot of damage. But we do have a tsunami siren that goes off every single month as a drill. That's all I'm gonna say about tsunamis in this video, but I do have a whole video dedicated to the tsunamis of Big Island that you can watch if you want a little bit more info. I'll put a link to it in the comments. Number 3. Rent here is expensive. We recently moved to a new rental house about 3 months ago, and I can attest that rent is indeed a lot more expensive than it used to be, and it's pretty hard to find. Especially if you have a family. If you're single, then of course it's a little easier, but no less expensive. For example, when we moved here 5 years ago in 2020, the first house that we rented was $1,600 a month. Now, 5 years later, this same place would easily go for $3,000 a month. And I know that some states on mainland are just as expensive, like California for example, or New York, which is even worse, but for the most part, on mainland, prices are going to be about half of what they are in Hawaii. And for all of my fellow rent seekers out there, I have a tip for you, since I know what it's like. If you find a house that you really like, but the price is a little bit too high, remember that you can always negotiate. Reach out to the homeowner or the property manager and offer them the price that you're willing to pay. Of course, within reason. And oftentimes they will be willing to work with the numbers a little bit. Number 4. Earthquakes. There's a lot of earthquakes here. I moved from Minnesota, and back in Minnesota, we did have earthquakes, but they were very, very rare. In fact, I don't even remember experiencing an earthquake in Minnesota. But here, I already lost track of how many earthquakes we've had. Especially when we lived on the north side of the island in Honoka'a. It seemed like the earthquakes there were even more frequent. I remember one of the first bigger scale earthquakes that we felt after moving into that house, and it's pretty shocking, it's scary. That particular earthquake lasted for about 10 to 15 seconds, and every single quake, it felt like there's a semi-truck ramming into the house. And what's interesting is that during this particular time, the neighbors were having a party. There was music, there was conversation, and during this whole time, there was no interruption, there was no pause in their conversations, in the music, or anything. We were so impressed that they were so nonchalant about the earthquake. But now that a few years passed, I can say that we too are not nearly as excited about earthquakes as we used to be. Number 5. There are 3 active volcanoes on the Big Island, because of which the island is divided into 9 lava zones. Zone 1 is considered the riskiest, and Zone 9 is the safest. And because Zones 1 and 2 are the riskiest, it's very hard or sometimes impossible to get homeowners insurance in those zones. I have a lava zone video that you can refer to if you would like some more information on that. I'll put a link to it in the comments. Number 6 is fog. I have a separate video on this one too, because when we moved here, we did not know what this was either. Whenever there's an eruption, even if there's not a lot of lava, there's a lot of this fog that is coming out of the volcano. So whenever Mount Kilauea erupts on the east side of the island, the winds can oftentimes pick that smog up and bring it to the west side of the island. And when that happens, the skyline becomes foggy. And of course, it's not natural fog, it's the smog that is coming from the volcano. Fortunately, most people are not too affected by this, but sometimes when the fog is extra thick, people do start to experience various symptoms like itchy throats, coughing, sneezing, and stuff like that. So especially if you have respiratory problems, that might be a consideration of where you decide to move on the island. Number 7. Big Island has 10 of the world's 14 climate zones. That's more than anywhere else on Earth. So you can have a dry desert on one side of the island and a tropical rainforest on the other. And in the middle, you have snow. I actually love that about Big Island, and I think it's pretty darn cool and unique. Number 8. This island also has a wet monsoon climate, which means that during a rainy season, it rains and it rains a lot. When we lived in Honoka'a, my sister bought a house on the east side of the island, and we went there about 3 times a week to help her remodel the house. And every time when we left Honoka'a, it was nice and sunny, and by the time we were driving into Hilo, the clouds got darker and the rain started to pour down. And this happened almost every single time we drove to that side. That's when we learned that the Hilo side is considered the rainy side. So if you're somebody that does not want to live in a wet, rainy area, then definitely make sure you check this out before you move to the Big Island. Number 9. Shipping is slow and sometimes not possible. I've had quite a few times where the seller would refuse to ship to me once they found out that I live in Hawaii, especially if it's bigger items or items with lithium batteries. And the reason sellers don't like shipping to Hawaii is because shipping here is more expensive. And not only is it more expensive, it also takes a lot longer. Here, you can't expect next day delivery. What you can expect is deliveries to take about a week or 2 to get here. And while I'm on the topic of shipping, what I also learned while living here is that there's whole neighborhoods that don't have mailboxes. The people in these neighborhoods have to go to the postal office once or twice a week to pick up their mail. That's what it was like for us when we lived up in Honoka'a. We had a whole neighborhood of single-family homes, but no mailboxes. And there was also no garbage pickup. So once a week or twice a week, I would load up the garbage, I would go into town, throw away the garbage, and pick up the mail. Number 10. Big Island is very dependent on the supply chain. A lot of the goods and products that we have in our shops and grocery stores have to be shipped in from mainland or other countries. And most of these products are shipped in by boat. And recently on the Big Island, the prices for shipping of these products went up by 18%. And starting in 2026, it's going to go up to 25%. Because shipping is expensive, you can expect that a lot of the products in the stores are going to cost twice as much as they do on mainland. Number 11. There's a lot of wildlife that came as a surprise for us here on the Big Island. As you're driving down the highway, you could see goats, you could see pigs, you could see chicken, you could see mongoose, and cats. Recently, kind of a fun thing happened. There was a chicken that made a home on the corner next to Costco. So every time I would come to Costco or I would be leaving Costco, this chicken would be in the middle of the road walking between the cars. It's almost like it claimed that corner because it knew that people coming from Costco will probably have some snacks. That chicken was there for over a month, and I was starting to look forward to see it, but unfortunately it did disappear now. Number 12. Talking about Costco, the store options here are limited. There's only one Costco for the whole island. There's 2 Walmarts, 2 Targets, there's 1 Ross, 1 TJ Maxx, and so forth. And most of these stores are either located on the east or the west. So if you're living on the bottom of the island or the top, everything is going to be a long drive. Number 13. Koki frogs. These frogs are very annoying to some people, and they're an invasive species that spread out through the whole island. When we just moved here and I had no idea what this frog was, when it came nighttime and I started hearing their chirping, it kind of sounds like koopy, koopy. I'm sure I sound pretty bad, so I'm just going to find this frog and play this noise for a few seconds here. But anyways, when I heard this noise, I actually thought this was some kind of a nocturnal bird. So I got curious, and one day I took a flashlight and I spent about 5 minutes tracking down this noise. It was a little hard because once you get close to them, they stop chirping. But eventually I did find it, and to my surprise, it was a little white frog. When these frogs move into your backyard individually, it's not so bad, but when they multiply and start a choir, it can be pretty obnoxious. Personally, I'm not very bothered by them, and I know at my parents' house there's a ton of them, and they're not bothered by it either. In fact, they claim that it helps them sleep, but there's a lot of people that say that they absolutely can't sleep if the koki frogs are singing. Luckily, there are pest control companies that can help you out, so this isn't too big of a concern. Number 14. My wife is really happy about this one, and that is that there is no snakes on the Big Island. Although there is one little snake that looks like a worm. Really bizarre. I did see them a couple times and I even caught some. They really look like an earthworm, but supposedly that's a snake. But other than that, there is no snakes. In fact, there's very few poisonous creatures on this island. But there is one notable creature that we do have that many places don't, and that is a giant centipede. I have a whole video devoted just to this little creature, so if you want to see more and hear more about this centipede, check that video out. And finally, number 15. Many of the beaches here are not as sandy as you would think. If you're expecting large sandy beaches on most of the coastline, you're in for a surprise. There's a lot more lava rock beaches than sandy beaches on this island. Though I do think it's noteworthy to mention that we have a green sand beach and a black sand beach on this island too. But one thing that is really cool is that many of these big resorts on this island have public access, which means that anybody can come and walk through the resort to get to the nice beaches. And not only can you go to the nice beaches, you can also take a stroll around the resort just to sightsee. One of the most popular resorts to go walk around in is the Hilton. So next time you visit the Big Island, make sure you check that place out. And those were the 15 things that many people don't know until they move to the Big Island. But there's one more thing that I really have to mention. My family and I, we moved to the Big Island in 2020, and I honestly can say we absolutely love it. And if you're planning on moving here, I'm sure you will love it as well. If you need help finding and buying the perfect property, reach out to me and I'll try my best to help you make it happen. All my contact information can be found in the video description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, let me tell you a couple of dad jokes that you could use at the dinner table. Did you hear about the woman that couldn't stop collecting magazines? She has a lot of issues. And what do you call a happy cowboy? A Jolly Rancher.